always been doing what you asked him to do. Just talk about him. We talked a lot about him this year, but since his injury,
yeah, just a solid guy. I mean, a guy that comes out to practice, and you know, he's always around the team. A very positive, you know, upbeat guy. He was obviously one of the first guys that that we recruited when we got here, and just gotten real close with his family. And I just believe and trust in him and his family, and what they stand for off the field, as well as everybody's pretty well documented what he's done on the field. So, he's just a young man that I got a high level of respect for in a lot of ways.
He said that his best memory of the 2010 season was Cody Burns catching a touchdown pass in the national championship game. Not his catching the Iron Bowl, not anything that he did. Does that surprise you that he said that?
It doesn't. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, again, I think he's a very selfless guy, and I think that that's what's going to make him be successful whatever he does after this, because it's never really about him. It's never really been about him. He could stand up and beat his chest for a lot of things that he's accomplished that people would dream about accomplishing in his career here, but he never does that. He's always going to talk about somebody else, and he's always going to be one of those guys that steps up to the plate and tries to help somebody else. And again, that's why I talk about what he represents off the field as well as on.
When you think about Lutz and those accomplishments that he's had here, the Alabama touchdown, the first thing that comes to mind, or
it's one of the first ones that come to mind. I mean, there's no doubt, but he's had so many great catches out there. I mean, he's had so many one-handed snags, and he's really, he really came on as a blocker, as his career, unfolded, because you got to remember, when he came out of high school, he was primarily a glorified wideout. So he had to learn the blocking game, and he had to learn how to do all those things, and it was very important to him to be able to try to improve in that regard, and he did. And so he'll always be remembered for certain catches that he made, and some spectacular ones at that, and some that the timing was impeccable, as you just mentioned, in the Iron Bowl 2 years ago. But his blocking and just everything he's brought to the table, other than the things that you even visibly see him do as a player, what he's like in the locker room, what he's like in encouraging young guys, what he's like, bringing guys in that want to play, and he wants to help them. He wants to help them learn the offense, or just learn what college football is all about. He's just always been one of those guys that and that's why I think most of our guys on our team have a very high level of regard, very similar to me, on Philip. And it's because he's just a different guy.
He said you played a big role in convincing him to get the surgery that his health beyond football. What was that conversation like when you came to you about that?
Well, he was very distraught, and my number one goal always is for doing what's in the best interest, of our student athletes, particularly when it comes to injury. And I try to treat everything like I would say that if it were my own son. And he was at a place right now where, when it all went down, nobody was really sure exactly what direction this was headed, and obviously we would eventually get there medically. And I just, told him, I said, I know there's a lot on your plate right now, because you're thinking about wanting to finish this season out and making sure that you do all you can to help Auburn win, because that's who he is. And then on the other side of that, you've got him thinking about a career beyond this. And I just said, at the end of the day, when you really sit down and think about this, and you really soul search and pray on it and do whatever you have to do, you got to end up doing health-wise what is the best for you, not 10 weeks from now, but 30 years from now. Because one of the things that happens with an injury like that is you don't want to walk around with a limp for the rest of your life either, so that you can finish what you started. And I think there's hard decisions to be made sometimes in there. Well, when all the evidence came back, it wasn't hard. He had to get it done. But in the interim, we had to have that conversation.